My name is Nick Wyndham,
And I'm Kristen Wyndham.
and we have been going to church for over a year now, and we go to the Westchester campus. How we ended up at Westchester was we were invited by a family friend and my boss, Chris Martin. And I am the head of the parking team, and I am on the greeting team at Westchester.
And I serve at Starting Point as well as do some admin work for Westchester. And I'm getting ready to, once the renovations start with Project Hope, be the info center lead. So when Project Hope launched, my husband and I started praying about what we were going to be able to give. He's a teacher, I'm a stay-at-home mom with our 2 kids, and we knew that we wanted to give, but we didn't really know where we wanted to give or what we wanted to give. And so I started, because I handle the finances, I started, coming up with a number. And, I'd come up with a figure that I felt worked into our budget, and I'd start praying on it. And every time that I would pray, I'd say, okay, God, he'd always answer and say, you can do more. And so I would come up with another number, and I kept getting the response of more. Well, finally, I came up with a figure, and I felt like it was totally out of our budget, but I really felt like God had laid it on our heart. I kind of laughed and said, God, if that's supposed to be the number, you have to give that number to Nick. I'm not going to tell him. He's going to laugh at me. I just did not feel comfortable telling him a number that I knew was kind of out of our budget. So I just kind of put it into God's hands and continued to pray about it. And so then one Sunday,
That Sunday before the commitment on what we were supposed to give, I was sitting there and I started praying because I wasn't quite sure how much we should give. I asked God, what's a number? How can we do this? What can we give? Because I really wanted to give as much as we possibly could to Project Hope and still be financially stable. So I'm sitting there and God gives me a number. And not only does he give me a number, he tells me exactly how we can achieve that number in an easy, quick, perfect way. So I sat there and went, okay, when I get in the car, I'm gonna tell my wife exactly what we're gonna give because I know it. You've told me that's what we're gonna go with. So after church, we get to the car and I look at my wife and I tell her the number. And she kind of sits there for a second and then she starts to smile. And what I didn't realize, because we had not talked about this, was that number that God gave me was the exact number that he gave God or gave Kristen before that. Our numbers were exactly the same. There was no difference. I personally don't know how you can find a more perfect way than, hey, this is exactly our number and this is what we're gonna go with, when the Lord tells you this is it. And it gives it to both of you individually and you come together on it. And we're just so excited for Project Hope, and we can't wait to see what it's going to do for our church.
yeah, and the best part about the number is he gave it to me weekly, and this is where I think, we just kind of looked at how amazing God was and what he was doing in each of us individually, because he had given me a number like a lump sum over the 2 years, but he gave it to Nick kind of weekly. And so I pulled out my calculator as soon as he had given him the amount, and I said, okay, I multiplied it by 2 years, and when it was the same number, it was undeniable that it was God. And since we started giving to Project Hope, our finances have been blessed. We've never been more financially stable, and we're really looking forward to what Westchester is going to look like and everything that's going to happen because people give. I tell Nick all the time that, when we're talking or we talk about things that God has done in our lives, that God never ceases to amaze us. Every time I try to put God into a box, whether it be Project Hope, our marriage, our finances, our children, just day-to-day life, every time you try to put him into a box and you see all the wonderful things that he does, he always comes up with surprises. It's every time I put him into a box, it's like he blows the lid off the box. He just is always moving and never fails. You cannot outgive God. With your time, with your finances, with your marriage, your family, you're not able to ever outgive God.
And my advice would be, do not be afraid to reach out and ask God. I mean, it's one of those things that I have steadily learned more and more about, and the more I ask God, the more answers that I get. Perfect example is Project Hope. We weren't sure what number we should give, and I wasn't afraid to ask, and I asked and I got that number, and it's the perfect number for our family. If you're seeking advice or if you need something, reach out to God. He's there for you. He'll answer. We're the Wyndhams.
And this is our God story.
Hey, Hope Point family. This is Project Hope Sunday. My name is Amy Kennedy, and I serve as the project manager for Project Hope. You may remember earlier this year, we set an audacious $1 million goal to make room for our community to find hope in Jesus. When it was all said and done and we counted it up in May, we found that we had raised and committed over $1.1 million, a 12.5% increase over the original goal that we had set. We are so thankful to God, and in fact, we're thankful to you. Give your neighbor a high five, but make eye contact first so you know that it's coming. Since then, we have received $243,255 against our goal of a $1.1 million. That's fantastic. We are so grateful to God and how He provides. And we're grateful to you for your faith and your faithfulness. We'll be bringing you more Project Hope Sundays and more Project Hope updates, so keep your eyes open.